morning. How we doing, New Dawn? It's good to see you. I'm feeling pretty good. How you feeling? Doing good? All right. Let's see how many times I can ask the same question in different ways. Oh, man, it's been a great month. The last few weeks have been amazing, and we're just so excited about what God has been doing in our church and what He's going to be doing from here on out. Man, we got a lot going on, and if you were here last week, we're glad that you shared that with us, and we're able to keep that going. Every chance you get, I want you to hashtag for Miami. Just load it up. We want to see that everywhere. So get your decals on the way out, and we'll be having some T-shirts for sale very soon, so you can be able to pick one of those up and rep that everywhere you go, all over Miami, all over the world. So I don't know, maybe we'll give a prize to whoever can go the farthest from here and take a picture and put it on Instagram. So that'd be something to strive for, right? We'll see what happens. So we're excited, man. We're going to be for Miami, and as we jump right in today, I got to think, how do you follow up something like last week? How do we follow up this vision statement and what God has, we felt, is laid on our hearts and projected a path and a future for our church and a vision statement and a direction for us to go in. So where do we go from here? The logical question is to ask, well, what does that look like? Or how are we going to be for Miami? Does that mean that we're just going to do a lot more community outreach events? Does it mean we're going to feed a lot more hungry people? Yeah, sure, absolutely. We are definitely going to do that stuff, and which we should be doing anyway. But we are definitely want to have a hand in tangibly impacting our city for the cause of Christ and meeting their needs, both physical and spiritual. So we're definitely going to be doing stuff like that. But in order to change our city, in order to really impact our city, it takes more than that. It takes more than charitable donations to change the culture of a city, doesn't it? It takes more than that. And so that's kind of where I want to end up today. And so how can we do that? And where do we go from here? What is the next step? Because I don't want to send the wrong impression that for Miami just means we're going to really get involved in as many opportunities as possible to do charity and stuff like that. And we love that. We're going to absolutely do that. That's a big part of what we do. We're going to be doing. But there's more. There's more. There's more that is required if, in fact, our goal, if, in fact, our purpose is to change the way that this city sees Jesus. And we want Jesus to touch this city through us. It's going to require a little bit more than just charity. You with me? Good. I'm glad. Step one. You're going to have to talk back to me. Yeah, loosen up a little bit. Take a deep breath. We're all family. You know me. Kick your shoes off if you need to. Lean back. Get comfy. And don't be afraid. Talk back to me. I would say that Miami doesn't just need another donation. You know what Miami needs? Miami needs a hero. You didn't see that one coming, did you? Miami needs a hero. A hero. Now when I say hero, your mind went to some place. I mean, you thought of something right off the bat when I said hero. And everybody has a hero. And if not now, when you grew up, when you were younger, you had a hero, didn't you? A guy, girl, it doesn't matter who you are. Everyone has heroes or had heroes at some point. And I got to thinking, I just wanted to share a few with you. Now I'm a weird case because I grew up in another country. And so if I showed you a lot of the shows that I grew up with, TV shows, it was like 20, 30 years behind. So some of the shows that I grew up with in Argentina, you know, people like 15, 20 years my senior grew up with here. So like I can connect with all kinds of people. But there's a few that you might recognize. So I left out all those really old ones. And let's see if we can recognize a few. Throw them up on the screen there. Oh, one of my absolute all-time favorites. Batman. Now, if you notice, this is not the new and improved Batman. This is the original Batman, who has the little stubby ears and kind of the beer gut going on. That's the one I grew up with. That when they fight, and remember when they fought, it was like pow, crash, bang. It was amazing. Come on, Batman and Robin. And so, who else? Let's see. We got. Come on, somebody. Come on, He-Man, Masters of the Universe. Yes. Of course, I watched He-Man in Spanish. So the first time I saw it in English, it freaked me out. It's like it's all wrong. Now, who else? Who else we got? Come on. If you're a child of the 70s, 80s, it has to be Christopher Reeves, right? That's our first exposure to Superman was this guy, and he was awesome. Such good movies. If you go back now and watch those movies, you're like, but they're classics. I mean, you have to. Okay, let's see what else. Come on, Great American Hero. Anybody? Anybody else collect G.I. Joes? Am I the only one? Yeah. Hey, come on, I got to witness. I got to. Oh, my goodness. What am I going to do with you guys? All right, what else? Now, I didn't grow up with this. This was after my time, but how many of you remember Captain Planet? Still nothing? What did you guys do growing up? This is pitiful. Oh, goodness gracious. There was a lot more. I mean, I just didn't have time to pull up photos of it. Like Thundercats. Anybody? Any Thundercat? Come on. Thundercat, my goodness. Transformers, the originals, Transformers, and man, Voltron. Now, see, you got to really be like on a different level if you know what Voltron is. And even going back to my like Zorro. Anybody remember Zorro? Really, you remember Zorro? You don't? All right. Everybody had a hero growing up, and me and my twin brother. We loved to play heroes, impersonating our favorite heroes. I, of course, was Batman, and my brother was Superman. And the reason I was Batman is because I am Batman. And my initials are literally B-A-T. So I thought that was not a coincidence. I thought that at some point I would get this superpower, and I am Batman. That's my initials, Bat. So it made sense to me. Leave me alone. Don't judge me. All right? So I love Batman anyway. And we used to play, do you guys remember a show from the early 80s called Chips? Chips? Come on. Can somebody help me out with Chips? Ponch and John? All right, well, we loved that show. All right? We loved that show. And we'd watch it every day in Spanish around noon. And then after lunch, me and my brother, 5, 6 years old, we'd go right outside, jump on our tricycles, put my mom's sunglasses on with our little helmets, and we were Punch and John. And so we played. We played impersonating our heroes. We all wanted to be heroes, right? At some point, you slapped a towel in your underwear and put the towel around your neck and jumped around the house because you wanted to be a hero. Everybody wants to be a hero. But normally, if I were to say, put your hands up if you think you're a hero, normally would be like, yeah, that's me. You don't introduce yourself as, hey, nice to meet you. By the way, I don't know how to say this, but I'm a hero, right? You don't do that, do you? Because no one really thinks of themselves as a hero. And a lot of times, let's be honest, we don't feel very heroic, do we, most of the time? We feel the opposite of heroic. When you woke up this morning, all a mess, and just like you just don't feel like, oh, this must be what heroes feel like. We don't feel heroic, and we don't think of ourselves as heroes. What is a hero at the end of the day? What is a hero? Take away the superpowers, the fact that you can fly, and all those kinds of things. What is a hero at the end of the day? What does it take to be a hero? What does a hero do? Hero saves the day, doesn't he? He flies in, comes in, gets there right on time. It's funny that he doesn't do any surveillance or intelligence, because otherwise he'd be able to prevent the crime rather than get there right when it's happening. I don't know, but that's not as dramatic. It doesn't make as good a TV show or movie. But he gets there right at the right time, stop the bad guy, make the world free for democracy again and saves the day, right? That's what heroes do. What makes the difference then between a hero and every other person? They're brave. Yeah, sure, they're brave. Absolutely. But there's a lot of brave people too. Definitely. No, we already discounted the superpowers. You got to pay attention. Come on. At the end of the day, follow. Do track with me, okay? The one thing that separates a hero from everybody else is a choice. Is a choice. Now I'm not talking fictitious TV heroes, movie heroes. I'm talking real life heroes. Real life heroes. What makes the difference between a hero and everybody else? It's a choice. That at that moment, when it all goes down and everybody is freaking out and running for their lives, the hero has a choice to make. The hero is the guy running towards the action, not away from it, right? Now, I'm not suggesting or encouraging you to run towards a shootout, right? Don't do that, okay? Use your head. What I'm saying is a hero seizes the opportunity when he sees a need. He doesn't run from it. It's about a choice. That's what makes the difference between heroes and the rest of us. It's all about a choice. And a hero doesn't accept the way things are. He doesn't accept the status quo. He doesn't stand for people getting mistreated or injustice, does he? A hero takes action. He doesn't stand around hoping that something will change or hoping somebody will do something. What does a hero do? I'm going to do something. I'm going to take a stand. Somebody's got to do something. And that's me, the hero. We all love him. But none of us really consider ourselves heroes. No, I'd like to change that today. Because what Miami needs is a hero. What our city needs is a hero. What our city needs is someone that they know is looking out for them. That when they need it the most, they can count on them. That when the situation is dark and perilous and seems hopeless, the hero shows up and meets the need. Well, guess what? Our city is there. And they need a hero right now. What if I told you? What if, just dream with me for a second, okay? Let your imagination fly. What if I told you that even though you didn't know it, there is a hero inside you? Not just because Mariah Carey said so. I will tell you that every one of you has a hero hidden inside you somewhere. Some of you are going to go home and listen to Mariah Carey, try to figure out what I'm talking about. I'll let you do that. And even though you might not think so or you don't believe it, each of you is a hero. And what if I told you that the hero that Miami, that our city needs is you? That you're it. Would you believe me? You don't look like you believe me. I'm going to try and change that today, all right? So I'm going to turn the person next to you and tell them, you're a hero. Or you're my hero, however the situation dictates. I don't know, whatever. Turn to the other person and say, me too. I lost you already? Come on, you got to work with me here. All right, let's get this going. There's a passage in Scripture that I love and that you may have heard, most likely everybody has heard. As a matter of fact, it's one of the most popular stories in Scripture. As a matter of fact, most people who know this story don't even know it's from the Bible. Even non-Christians especially will use this terminology, use this metaphor and this idea, and they don't even realize where it comes from. So I want you to turn with me to the book of Luke, the New Testament. Luke chapter 10. And we're going to dive in here to one of the most popular stories in the New Testament. Chapter 10. We're going to start reading verse 25. Let me set this up. So Jesus is in full swing in his ministry. He's traveling around everywhere he goes. He draws a crowd, and people's lives are being changed. The message that he is preaching is different from the message that people have heard before. It's fresh, it's new, it's something different than the law, and he's breaking people free. And wouldn't you know it, that because he's making such a dent in the religious scene, he's got all these haters that are following him around everywhere he goes. So everywhere he goes to speak, there are always a group of people who are trying to catch him off guard, who are trying to trip him up, to set traps for him, trying to get him to say something that he will regret, that he's not supposed to, so that they can get him in trouble and kind of bring his whole party down, right? So everywhere Jesus goes, there's always people trying to talk trash about him, they're writing things down, they're memorizing everything he says, they know what he's been saying, and they're going to listen, and try and catch him in something. Catch him in a lie or set a trap. They want to bring him down. And so that's no different than this passage right here. And Jesus is addressing a crowd. He's preaching. All of a sudden, this guy shows up out of the crowd. And then let's pick it up in verse 25, chapter 10 of Luke. It says this: on one occasion, just one of many, an expert of the law, I guess, does that make him an attorney? I don't know. He's an expert of the Jewish law at that moment, and stood up to test Jesus. All right, this guy knows his law. He knows what he's talking about. Chances are he's been studying Torah and law since he was like 8 years old, memorizing it, okay? So he was not an ignorant person. He was well-versed in the Jewish law, 612 plus, whatever, depending on who you ask, of them, okay? He knew his stuff. And this guy has a problem with Jesus because he's changing the narrative. And he's rocking the boat. And all of a sudden, what gave this guy and all the other people, religious leaders, power was the fact that they were elite in their knowledge and status. And Jesus comes along and says, no, it's the other way around. It's not what you know, right? And so that causes a problem for these guys. And he's trying to challenge Jesus. So it says, an expert of the law stood up to test Jesus. And he says, teacher, he asked, what must I do to inherit eternal life? Legitimate question, I guess. Now, what you got to know about Jesus is that he's God, all right? And so when you ask him a question, he doesn't just hear the words that come out of your mouth. He sees your intentions behind the words that come out of your mouth. That's what's so awesome about Jesus, because people would ask him something, and he would reply in the most bizarre ways because he saw the person's intention. And I love that, because he goes straight for the heart. What did you mean behind it? He knows what you meant behind it, so he addresses the issue at hand. Now, people had asked Jesus this before. This was not a new question. This was a rehashing of the same questions in a different way. In Matthew 22, we can see that somebody asked him a similar question in a different way. They asked him in Matthew 22, they says, what is the greatest commandment? So you're a rabbi, you're a teacher, right? Okay, so tell us what the greatest commandment is. Of all 600 plus commandments, what is the best one? What is the greatest? And Jesus answers in a way that everyone who was present would have recognized. He answers quoting law, Jewish law. And so he answers in Matthew 22, he says, love the Lord your God. You know it too, right? With all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, right? And so about that time when he goes, love the Lord, everybody who was in his a shot of ear and could hear him was like mumbling with him. Okay, love the Lord your God. They all knew it by memory. That was not foreign to them. That was not original with Jesus. That was law. When it says to love the Lord your God, everybody said it with him, with all your heart, soul, mind. Except that at that point, Jesus added something to it. Right? So he quoted the law, and then he goes a step further, because Jesus always does that. He completes the law, fulfills it, and he takes it up a notch. So Jesus adds to the narrative. He quotes a passage. He quotes a verse from the book of Leviticus, which is Jewish law as well. And so he adds to the love the Lord your God part, and he continues and says, and love your neighbor as yourself. And Jesus adds that to it. So now, Jesus' message is not just love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, but it is followed with love your neighbor as yourself, which was an addition to the law as they knew it. And so he was kind of already changing the narrative. But see, when he says love your neighbor, they also knew that term because it was also part of their teachings. So when he said love your neighbor, every Jewish person that was listening to Jesus knew exactly what he meant. Now, for us, it's kind of vague. It can be, it's up for discussion. It's subjective. What is your neighbor? Well, it could mean several things, right, to you, but not to a Jewish person. They knew exactly what neighbor meant. When you said love your neighbor, all these people knew exactly who Jesus was talking about. You see, for the Jewish community, when you said neighbor, it didn't literally mean the person living next to you. When you referred to neighbor, what neighbor meant for them was people who were their people, of their group. And so when they said neighbor, what they're referring to is every other Jewish person. It was a specific, exclusive, closed group of people. So the first time Jesus says it, love your neighbor as yourself, the Jewish community understood, all right, I love my Jewish brothers and sisters. That is my neighbors. Those are my neighbors, no more. That's where the line is drawn, and they guard it exclusive, all right? It is my people. Those are my neighbors. That's what that meant. And so when Jesus said that, they already knew. And now in Luke again, he gets asked the same question, just in a different way. And the guy says, what do I have to do to inherit eternal life? And so Jesus answers. And I love that he answers a question with another question. That's just so awesome to me because I'm sure it drove these guys bananas, right? Like, can't you just answer the question? Why do I got to answer a question about my question? Just tell me what I want. He's like, no, listen. Okay, so he answers the question. He says, well, what's written in the law? You're the expert. What does the law say about it? He says, how do you read it? How do you interpret the law about this? What do you think it says? And of course, this guy, just like every other person around Jesus at that moment, knew exactly what the answer was. And so I imagine they all said it in unison. He answered, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind. And this guy thinks he's going to be clever because he knew what Jesus had said before, even though it wasn't part of Jewish tradition. He throws it into the last minute, kind of saying, kind of sarcastically, I imagine, and love your neighbor as yourself, right? That's what you said last time. So he kind of tags it in on the end there. Because that would not be what a expert of the law would respond. But he's talking to Jesus, and he knew what Jesus had said. Most likely he was there before. And so he just kind of takes a little stab at it and said, I love the Lord your God and love your neighbor as yourself. And he thinks he's going to be smart with Jesus, right? And so Jesus responds. He says, you have answered correctly, Jesus replied. Congratulations, that's the right answer. Do this and you will live, he says to the guy. End of conversation. Problem solved. We're good, right? We can go home. You got your answer. And then the guy says, wait. He wanted to justify himself, just in case everybody was wondering, like, I know what I'm talking about, and I know Jesus is the one who said that. So here he goes again, trying to be smart with Jesus. And listen to what he says. He says, well, Jesus, who is my neighbor? Which is a bogus question, because everyone knew who your neighbor was. Everyone knew it was a known Jewish thing that your neighbors were your fellow Jewish people. According to Jewish tradition and law, those are the ones you've got to look out for. Those were your neighbors, according to Mosaic law. So he knew the answer to the question he was asking Jesus, which is bizarre. And it tells me he's trying to catch Jesus off guard, trying to get Jesus to say something. See, because they had noticed that Jesus had been hanging out with people who would not be considered neighbors by most Jewish people. They knew that he was breaking bread with people who are less desirable, if you will. That normally Jewish people would not consider them neighbors. They had seen what Jesus was doing. They knew where he went, and they had watched him talk and hang out with these people, which was a no-no. And so he's thinking, I'm sure, I got him now. He's quoting the law like he knows it. He says, love your neighbor as yourself, yet he goes beyond the boundaries of that, and he's been hanging out with all these other people. I got him. Now, let's see what he says about this. So the guy says, well, who is my neighbor, Jesus? Why don't you tell us? Clarify it, and let's see who is breaking the law. And Jesus goes into this rant that I imagine confused everybody. Because he goes from, and who is my neighbor? In reply, Jesus says this. A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. What? How is that an answer to the question I just asked you? Can you imagine talking to somebody like that? Oh my gosh, frustrating. So everybody's going, I think he's lost his mind. I don't know. This guy asks him a question. He goes into the story, or I don't know what's going on. And Jesus continues. So awesome. The master communicator. Goes straight to the point. How would you like talking to somebody who could see right straight through to your soul and know your intentions? Like, what are you going to do? Lie to him or something? I mean, you're right. Like, everything that comes out of his mouth is like, pure truth. He knows everything about you. And so Jesus says, a man was going down to Jerusalem, from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, because clothes are very valuable. They beat him and went away, leaving him half dead. Now, I've never been there, but I've heard that the road going from Jerusalem to Jericho is very treacherous and dangerous. It's rocky, and it's even dangerous to drive it these days, much less back then when you had to ride a donkey or walk it, and there was a lot of caverns and canyons and falling rock stuff, and then there's places that you had to get off and walk your donkey through because it's dangerous. And there's a lot of places for thieves to hide out, and this happened all the time. It was a very dangerous road, not just because of the location, but because there was usually people hiding out to harm you, to rob you, or whatever. So there was a lot of places for that to happen, and that was the situation with this guy who was a Jewish man. And so they robbed him, they left him naked and half dead, laying in the road. There he is. And Jesus continues in verse 31. He says, a priest happened to be going down the same road. Now, you got to understand that a priest would be one that Jewish people would consider a neighbor, right? Because he's a Jewish person. They're neighbors. So, a priest, a neighbor, happened to be going down the same road, And when he saw the man, his neighbor, he passed by on the other side. Interesting. So too a Levite, guess what? Another neighbor, another Jewish person. When he came to the place and saw him, he passed by on the other side. And then Jesus takes this story in a completely crazy, unimaginable direction. And he says this in verse 33. But a Samaritan, to which you would have heard an audible, no, from the crowd of people there. Now that doesn't mean anything to you and I today, but in the first century, you need to understand the dynamic between the Jews and Samaritans. And the best way I can think to describe it is just organized social racism of the worst kind, almost like apartheid. They considered them to be like animals, like dogs, unclean. Like you don't get close to them, you don't treat with them, you don't touch them. They're horrible people. And so the distinction that Jesus is making here is of utmost importance when he brings out the fact that a Samaritan shows up on the scene. It's drastic. It's severe. It's shocking. A Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He felt sorry for the guy. He had compassion on this Jewish man. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Wait. Are you telling me that this unclean Samaritan touched a Jewish person? That's crazy. I'm not listening to this anymore. That's out of control. I'm just trying to see if we can get the reaction of the crowd that was listening to this story at that moment in the first century. This was unheard of. Outrageous. He put his hand, Then he put him on his own donkey. He brought him to an inn and took care of him. The next day, what? He waited a whole day. Like, what is going on here? This doesn't happen. First of all, he touches the man. Secondly, he sacrifices for the guy. So he had to walk the path while this guy rode his own donkey? Yeah, right. Thirdly, he took time. He gave up his time for a Jewish person. The next day, he took out 2 denarii and gave it to the innkeeper. Look after him, he said. And when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have. So he cared for him, he touched him, he sacrificed, he gave his time, and he also gave his resources. He gave his money to this guy who he didn't know. That is out of control. And in one question, with one question that follows, Jesus redefines what it means to be a neighbor forever. With one question, Jesus changes the meaning of the word neighbor for the world forever, for every generation. And in one question, this same question, Jesus makes it not only possible for anyone to become a hero, he also removes any excuses that you and I could have to become one. In one question, he does all of that. It's incredible. Verse 36. He says, which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers? Hold on. Let me think, because this just got complicated. Which one of these three? Well, you got two neighbors that walked by and left him half dead, and then you got a guy who is not a neighbor. And I imagine he kind of stumped the expert of the law at this point, along with many people there. Because how do you answer this? According to your tradition and your law, there's only two guys that are neighbors. The other one is not, by definition. Yet, logically, it doesn't make sense, because the one who did something was not I don't know. How do you answer this question right now without getting myself in trouble? Right? And obviously, Jesus is going to the point, the heart of the matter, of what this guy needs to know. What is Jesus actually asking when he asks this question? Which one of these three is the neighbor? Let's redefine a little bit and see if we can understand what Jesus is actually asking this expert of the law. Here's what I think Jesus is asking. He's asking him this. Which one of these three loved the Lord his God with all his heart, all his soul, all his strength, all his mind, by loving a stranger more than himself? When you put it that way, it's even more complicated. Which one of these three loved the Lord his God with all his heart, soul, mind, strength, by loving a stranger more than himself? Which one of these three is a hero? In that moment, Jesus redefines the word neighbor for everybody. And what they thought neighbor meant to that point changed. And I imagine some people, the light went on and said, oh, what I thought neighbor meant, I guess it does not really mean. Neighbor means something else. Anyone can be a hero to someone. I'm sure the expert hesitated, no doubt, to answer this question. You see, because once he answered this question, he would become accountable to his answer. And once you and I answer this question that changed everything, we become accountable to our answer. It means that you can't answer something in such a way and then not act upon your own answer. Right? So finally, the expert in verse 37 replies. And he says, well, the one who had mercy on him. What's interesting to me is that he didn't even want to utter the words Samaritan. Did you notice? He won't even say, well, the Samaritan. He has to say, the one who had mercy on him. I'm sure Jesus gave a little grin and said, go and do likewise. Go and do likewise. What drives this home is that not long after this takes place, just a short time after this happened with this guy, that Jesus would put this principle and this truth into action with his own life. And he would become a neighbor to everyone from everywhere for all generations. As he hung on a cross, he became a Samaritan for you and for me. You realize that? He lived out the principle that he had just taught to these people. He showed them what it looked like firsthand. And forever changing the definition of what it means to love your neighbor. And from that moment, the word neighbor would no longer have barriers or ethnic boundaries or borders. Forever. Never again. The word neighbor means something different. And so now, when people say, love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, your mind, your strength, and love your neighbor as yourself, it means something different completely. It doesn't mean your people. It doesn't mean your close circle. It doesn't mean your family. It doesn't mean just the people you like. The best example we have in Scripture of your neighbor is the people you don't know and that are strangers to you and that are not like you at all. Who's your neighbor? Now, can I ask you the question and put you on the spot? The question that changed everything for these people, that redefined how they approached God, that redefined how they approached others, that redefined their religion. Which one of these do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers? You know the answer, obviously. You know which one it is? I'll tell you. It's the one who saw a need and met it. It's the one who knew the price and paid it. And it's the one who didn't talk himself out of it. That's the one who was the neighbor. That was the one who's the hero. That is the definition of a hero, isn't it? The one who saw a need and met it, who knew the price and paid it, and the one who didn't talk himself out of it. How many times, Lord have mercy, have I talked myself out of the opportunity that God has put in front of me? God, forgive me. Don't we do that all the time? Or am I the only one? We just, golly, there are so many things we could be doing. Oh, I got this, I got that, I can't, whatever. There's always a way out, isn't there? When there's a need, there's the opportunity, and it's there, and you know, and there's the tug at your heart, you're going, I should do something. There's always a way out. Always. There always will be a way out. Always. And so, we got a choice, don't we? We got a choice that will define who we are. Either heroes or zeros. Sorry, it rhymed. That's not what I was going to say. But a choice that will set us apart. Like Jesus talked about. Someone's neighbor, which is a completely different definition than I hope you thought it was. And I hope you leave here with a different idea of what a neighbor actually is. You have a choice to be a hero for somebody. Or you have a choice to run away. Those who see the needs and meet them, who know the price and pay it, and those who don't talk themselves out of it. Those are heroes. So how are we going to touch our city? How are we going to reach this amazing place where God has put us? How are we going to bring change to this city? Well, I'll tell you how we're going to do it. We're going to do it by touching and changing one person, one family at a time. One at a time. Put your finger up in the air. Everybody say one. One at a time. One at a time. That's how we change the world. That's how you change the world. One at a time. And so maybe your vision is going, well, man, This is really ambitious for Miami. That is a big, tall order. How in the world is this church going to be for Miami, reach for Miami, put a dent in the culture of this city for generations to come? It's more than we can handle. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's more than we're capable of. Ain't it? Let me tell you something right now. If it is not more than we're capable of, then we can take the glory for it. But like we talked about the first week, God wants us to give what we have so that He can give what we don't have. And we're going to do it one at a time. And I promise you this, that God will open one opportunity for you at least every day. I guarantee it, that if you open your eyes, there will be an opportunity for you to make a choice to be somebody's hero, to touch somebody with the love of Jesus in that moment, to change somebody's life. And you can't change everybody's life. I know that. But you can change somebody's life. You can't save the world. But you can save the world for one person. And that's what we're going to do. One at a time. Do for one what you can't do for all. Do for one what you can't do for all. Be somebody's neighbor. Be somebody's neighbor. The need is there. The need is there. If we'll choose to run towards it and meet it and be somebody's hero, everyone can be someone's hero. You believe it? Mm-hmm. Say it like you mean it. I'm a hero. I can't hear you. I'm a hero. You sound like heroes. So that's what we're going to do, church. How are we going to reach Miami? One at a time. One hero at a time. One need at a time. One person at a time. Get out there. Put your cape on. It's time to be a hero.